So here we're going to solve some linear equations that have fractional coefficients. And even, we've done a few in the past in some previous videos where it was like 1/3 x. But here we're going to have things like 2/3 x, right? So where it's not just a 1 in the numerator. The 1 in the numerator doesn't really complicate things too much, but a 2 in the numerator, on the other hand, does. So the first thing we'll do for any of these is check first and see if it's a 1 or a 2-step equation. So the one on the right here is just a 1-step equation, right? But if we had a plus or a minus on that same side, like if we said 2/3 x plus 7 equals 6, then that's a 2-step equation, right? We have to use addition or subtraction to clear off this plus 7 that's not attached to our variable. But that's not what we've got going on here in this one. So we can skip step 1 and we'll go straight to step 2. Step 2 says multiply both sides by the reciprocal of that fractional coefficient. Well, let's talk about what that even means. First of all, a reciprocal just means if I have 2/3, the reciprocal would be 3/2. We would just flip it, right? If I had 5/4, the reciprocal would just be 4/5. Right, so we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. And so if we think about what's happening there, if I multiply this by the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3/2, and keep in mind we're going to have to do this over here as well, right? Well, what's happening? Well, we're dividing by 2, which is going to turn that 2x into just x. And we're multiplying by 3, right? Which is going to take these 3's and make them cancel out. So the 2's will cancel and the 3's will cancel. It gets a little confusing looking there. But when you multiply by the reciprocal, you're now multiplying and dividing by both 2 and by 3. And if I multiply something by 2 and 3, and then I divide it by 2 and 3, all that stuff just goes away. And all that will be left is an x. On this side, in case we're not super great about doing 6 times 3/2, it's easy enough to turn that 6 into 6/1, right? Because 6/1 is the same as 6. And then to multiply two fractions, you just multiply straight across. 6 times 3 is 18, and 1 times 2 is 2. Well, now we have to simplify that, but 18 divided by 2 is just 9. And just like all the other problems we've done previously, we can always check our work by going and plugging it back into our original equation. Right? We need to know, does 2/3 times 9, or times 9/1, equal 6, right? We're just taking that 9 and replacing the x with it. Well, 2 times 9 is 18. 3 times 1 is 3. Is 18 divided by 3 equal to 6? Well, yes it is, so we've got the right answer. So the only thing we're really adding here is, once we get down to just the variable with our fraction there in front of the x, all we need to do is multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction. So let's take a look here at 5/4 x minus 1 equals 9. Well, this time there is something that's not attached to the x, right? The minus 1, so we'll have to deal with that first. That was step 1. Use addition or subtraction to deal with what's not attached to the x. So we've got 5/4 x equals 9 plus 1, or equals 10. And now we just do our multiply by the reciprocal step. And it makes sense because this is a division by 4, so we're going to want to multiply by 4. And it's also a multiplication by 5, so we're going to want to divide by 5. Right? In other words, we're just multiplying by the reciprocal. And we'll do the same thing here. 10 times 4/5. And if you like, you can put a 1 down there, right? So that we can see that when we multiply straight across, right? And even if we did the multiplication here, we'd have 20 x over 20. You don't need to do that. But what is 20 divided by 20? Well, it's just 1. We just get x. And over here, 10 times 4 is 40, and 1 times 5 is 5. And if you just do the division, 40 divided by 5, you get x equals 8. So we'll do a couple more of these real quick, and hopefully we'll get the hang of it. Negative 2/5 x plus 7 is equal to 13. So again, we have to do step 1. We have something that is not attached to the x. That's the plus 7, so we will subtract that 7, giving us negative 2/5 x equals 13 minus 7 is just 6. And then we'll multiply by the reciprocal. And since this fraction is negative, when we multiply by the reciprocal is also a negative number, negative 5 over 2. And common mistake I see is a lot of kids forget the negative when they bring it over here to the right-hand side to multiply. Again, if you like putting the 1 underneath the 6, feel free to do that. On the left-hand side, negative 5/2 times negative 2/5 just becomes 1. The negative times the negative makes it positive. And on the top, we're multiplying by 5 and 2. And on the bottom, it means we're dividing by 5 and 2. So all that cancels out to just be x. On the right-hand side, we have a positive number times a negative number, which is going to give us a negative number. And we have 6 times 5, which is 30, and 2 times 1, which is 2. If we take half of 30, we end up with 15. So our final answer is negative. That negative doesn't go anywhere. Negative 15. And we'll just do one more. For this last one, again, we've got something not attached to the x. So we'll eliminate that minus 6 first with a plus 6 to both sides, giving us negative 8/3 x equals 8. And now we will multiply by our reciprocal again. So we'll multiply by negative 3 over 8 on both sides. And for this one, we're going to do one little extra thing here that we don't necessarily have to do, but it's going to make our lives a little bit easier. Right? On the left-hand side, I think we can see that this is just x, I hope. On the right-hand side, we could multiply this all out. I'm going to do that over here. We get negative 24 divided by 8, and then we would need to simplify that. Or we could recognize that there is an 8 right here and an 8 right here. One's in the numerator, one's in the denominator. 8 divided by 8 is just 1. I don't have to bother doing that multiplication there. All that's left is a negative 3 up in the numerator here, and a 1 in the denominator. Well, a 1 in the denominator, if you divide by 1, that doesn't do anything. So all we're left with is negative 3. Now, if you did multiply it all the way through and get negative 24 over 8, well, 24 divided by 8 is 3. And so our result would be still negative 3. So sometimes you might see a little trick like that where you can simplify things down like we did with those 8s over here. But if you don't do that, it just means you might have a little simplification left to do at the end. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Just whichever way you see is going to be best for you. And that's how we deal with fractional coefficients in our linear equations.